Welcome to No Longer Conformed. I'm Erik Garthe, and we are studying 7 Roles of Christ, the prologue of John's Gospel. In this session, we'll be looking at John chapter 1, verses 6 to 11. Jesus is the light. The people in Jesus' day missed him. He came among them, and they ignored him. They were in the presence of God, and they didn't recognize him. Maybe they weren't looking for him because he appeared as a carpenter's son. Maybe they were just too busy with the routine of their lives. Or maybe, like many of us, they didn't want to see Jesus because he would impact their lifestyle. He would make them change. John chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. Speaking of John the Baptist, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. This man came for a witness to bear witness to the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. In John's introduction of Jesus, he wanted his readers to see and experience Jesus firsthand. Today, we look at verses 9 through 11, where John reveals some good news and some bad news about Jesus becoming human. First, the good news. Jesus is coming, verse 9. That was the true light which gives light to every man coming into the world. John stated that Jesus is the true light. The true light that darkness can't overcome was coming in flesh and blood. The true light that would point man to the life God offers was appearing in person. The true light that would dispel the darkness of sin and death was visiting this planet. They didn't have marquees or billboards or direct mail or banners trailing planes to announce the arrival of Jesus, but the people did have plenty of warning. God told them many times in many ways. The great men of the Bible, prophets, others had foretold his coming. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, Micah, Zechariah, and Malachi said, he's coming. Every book, every chapter, every page of the Old Testament shouted it. He's coming. The primary theme of the Old Testament is that God would one day send a Messiah to earth to deliver his people Israel. Even some pagan astrologers in Persia figured it out when they saw his star in the east, that Jesus was coming. Second, then there's the bad news. Jesus wasn't wanted. Look at verse 10 and 11. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. As good as the news was, there was some bad news as well. In the Message, Eugene Peterson paraphrased these verses. He wrote them as, he said, he was in the world was there through him, and yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. There are 2 responses that people make when Jesus is presented, that John reveals in these verses. He was ignored. In verse 10, the Greek word for world is cosmos, meaning the realm where human beings live. John used the word world 3 times in one verse. The first 2 times, as well as in verse 9, the emphasis is on the planet. The third time, the focus is on the people that inhabit the planet. very much like in John 3:16. From this verse, we can learn three realities. The supreme fact of history. He, Christ, was in the world. Everything starts with this fact. When John wrote, he was in the world, he means more than just a quick visit. God walked on this planet for 33 years. He was flesh and blood man, born of a woman with a human nature just like ours. He was born as we're born and grew up through all the stages of childhood, infancy, toddler, young child, teenager, and young adult. He was one of us and walked among us. And then the supreme truth of history. The world was made through him. This world, planet, and people owes its very existence to the Word. John repeated what he said in verse 3, reminding his readers that Jesus is the Creator. And then the supreme tragedy of history. The world did not know him. This is more than more. This more is more than intellectual knowledge. This is more than knowing facts. It means failing to know intimately, like a brother would know a brother. The planet and its inhabitants missed an opportunity when Jesus visited planet Earth. They snubbed their nose at Jesus. The world didn't recognize Jesus, and it still does not. He was rejected. In verse 11, John tells us that the world's ignorance was not the worst of it. Not only was Jesus ignored, Jesus was rejected by his own people. He came to his own land, Palestine, and to his own people, the Jews, and they did not receive him. He ought to have been welcomed with open arms. He should have been welcomed like a soldier coming home from war or a king coming to his own kingdom, but he was rejected. Jesus came to his hometown and to his own family, and they didn't want him. They didn't believe him. And finally, they crucified him. What are the implications of Jesus is the light? What must we do to recognize and receive Jesus? First of all, you must have a desire to see Jesus. The main reason that the shepherds and the wise men saw Jesus first, because they were curious. When Hollywood was filming the movie Leatherheads, one of the scenes was filmed downtown on a Wednesday night. A few people got to see the filming from only a short distance away. Others stood behind barricades with their necks stretched high, straining on tiptoes a great distance away. Why would they go to such effort? They had a desire to see someone famous. To see Jesus, you must have that kind of desire. You must open your eyes. Second, you must open your eyes to see Jesus. Jesus is all around you. You just have to look for him. If you look outward, you'll see order in the universe. If there's order, there must be a mind, a being behind it all. If you look upward, you see the stars as numerous as the sands upon the seashore. No astronomer can be an atheist. If you look inward, you will see the power to think, to reason, to know right from wrong. Philosopher Immanuel Kant said, "Two things convinced me of the existence of God: the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me." The handprint of Jesus is all around us. We just need to look for him. And then third, you must be patient to see Jesus. A first-time visitor to the Grand Canyon asked the park ranger the best place to see it. The ranger said, "It doesn't matter where you sit. It is grand from any angle or location. Just make sure to find one spot, sit your rear down and watch it from sun up to sundown. See it transform before your eyes. Watch the changing of the colors. See the birds flying below. Hear the wind whistling through the crevices. The way to see the Grand Canyon is not to rush it." Many people go to the Grand Canyon and never get off their bus. Others raced for one viewing spot to another, take a couple of snapshots and say they've seen the Grand Canyon. Some people go to the Grand Canyon and all they see is a big ditch. Still others fight the congestion and buy a souvenir. They look at the Grand Canyon, but they don't see it. People are the same way with Jesus. Some come to church once or twice a year. Others come once or twice a week. They go through the motions. They say they're Christians. They look at Jesus, but they don't see him. Or they try to read a verse of the Bible and say a quick prayer. They think they're spiritual. They look for Jesus, but they don't see him. Others witness miracles, experience God's care and protection, but pass it off as coincidence. Jesus is right in front of them. But sometimes the hardest thing to see are those things right in front of our eyes. To see Jesus requires slowing down, being still before him, listening for his voice, and watching for his movements. And fourth, you must experience him to see Jesus. A scientist could provide you with a scientific equation of hot Krispy Kreme donuts. And you would say, no, I want to experience this chemical equation. No equation can do justice to freshly fried batter covered with sugar. You have to experience it. A picture of it, or even someone describing the taste, is not sufficient. You want to taste it. The same is true of seeing Jesus Christ. We have to experience him. The two disciples of John who questioned where Jesus was living in John 1:39, Jesus replied, "Come and see." To Nathanael, who questioned if anything good could come out of Nazareth, referring to Jesus, Philip said in John 1:46, "Come and see." Come and see is an invitation to examine Jesus for ourselves. We may have heard about him from others, but we're invited to see for ourselves, to experience him. John 1:49, Nathanael came, Nathanael saw, and Nathanael answered and said to him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Today may be the chance of a lifetime to see Jesus. You have the opportunity to not only have a brush with someone famous, but to recognize him and receive him. Don't pass him by. You have a great day.